This is in the news. Midnight blizzard, guidance for responder on nation-state attack. Microsoft is in the news for the last few days. Their server got compromised because of legacy authentication in a non-production environment, which does not make sense how their production environment got compromised because they were non-production, right? This whole article is talking about legacy authentication. And to give an idea, because those who are new or managing the tenant, they may not have some background. So I'm going to cover a little bit on a high level. And this is in Microsoft 365. This practice is there. Things they are not covering in this article is about hybrid environment. And there are different scenarios you can have legacy authentication implemented. Even if you have some virtual machines, SQL databases in Microsoft environment, maybe in Azure, for example, it's all about identity. And if you're running a SQL Box 2007 in your Azure environment, that can also be impacted. So you got to make sure legacy authentication is disabled. If you're running Microsoft 365, which this article is talking about Exchange Web Services, those who don't know what Exchange Web Services, so basically this comes from Exchange and Exchange Online. And everything what you do in Microsoft Outlook is Exchange Web Services, whether it's your calendar, whether it's scheduling, appointments, setting up your Microsoft Outlook. Exchange Web Services an API which provides all the information as a client you need to set up your environment. Back in days, it was very difficult for us when we used to set up Exchange 2010, 2007, and 2003. Even in 2003, Exchange Web Services did not even exist. They started doing Exchange Web Services back in 2010 server after some upgrades. So if you're running 2010, good luck, but you should be running, in my opinion, at least 2016 server. Um, Again, there are chances you may have some legacy things enabled. So from mailbox perspective, legacy things are IMAP, POP, and all those stuff, which I can show you what those are. So this is very, very, very important for you to go and take a look, which you can at least try. And one important thing always keep in mind is that make sure, do not just go and apply it. Make sure communicate with your different teams, um, with your environment, like engineering team, security team, because it can also break things. For example, what's going to break if you go and apply? You might think, hey, Adnan, I'm going to do this and modern authentication is good. You're suggesting it. Every article is published from Microsoft. Guess what? If you're running some old servers, I mentioned SQL Box, Windows boxes, there are some database application. There are some application they do not support it. So that application using the user ID and account from Active Directory or Microsoft Azure, that will just break right out there. You might have some service accounts. So you have to be very careful when you go and enforce it throughout your organization. So make sure you do the discovery and then create an exceptions, and then you work on that. You don't want to bring your business down. This is very important. So wherever possible, do it. You will have to take some time, do some discovery, make sure you work with different team. And so maybe you're watching my video, whether you're a security person, you have to work with engineering and architecture team. If you're engineering architecture from that product from Microsoft 365, you have to work with different team. So something good does not go bad. And you might make sure you got to have a chain management. If you're using ServiceNow, any ticketing management system or ITIL, basically, you got to make sure everything is documented, steps are documented. Something goes bad, can you come back from this or not? For example, if you disable legacy auth on a SQL box, I'm just giving an example that sends email for reporting every day, for example. If that is impacted, can you roll it back? So make sure you have a exit strategy. If something breaks, how are you going to fix it or bring it back? So those are the things you have to think. Just don't go and apply this. Most of the engineers I've seen, they do the mistakes time again and again without thinking how it's going to impact your business. So very, very important. Exchange Web Services, they're talking about how this thing happened. Again, you can read it. So my whole purpose of this video to give you some tips so you go and investigate it and figure out yourself. Not to figure out, I mean, go and fix it basically. So this is the whole process, like, non-production environment. They also played around with they created some apps. They also do the OAuth, this particular area of the article talking about that the legacy test OAuth application had elevated access to Microsoft corporate environment. So from the test environment, they have access to the production environment. This is what they're talking about. So maybe this is how it happened. And they actually created additional malicious OAuth application. So they were, so now I'm painting the picture. They were connecting their non-fraud to the fraud and making API call through those applications through OAuth. they have compromised OAuth. So for production environment, this application was trusted using OAuth, but underneath, when the consent is done, then they were able to read all the data, and which is very common. I've seen it many times. I'm talking about back in like 4 or 5 years ago in some of the organization. I told them this is scary, and guess what? Thing happens and happens. So again, this is where you need to know the technologies and all these third-party applications, SaaS products. When you integrate in your environment, Exchange EWS dot API dot all dot read something. If you look in the Graph API, you'll find out. So this is what I'm talking about. This is here exactly they're saying online full access app role. Okay, the threat actor then use a legacy test or application to grant them full exchange online full access app. It's not even read only. Full access mean they could write it, and this is how they compromise their email system. So now we know that you don't have to allow read only. You have to allow only read only full access. Look into that. You have to do some of your research and work with your exchange engineer. They know, they should know everything all about it. So again, as a security practitioner, this is on a high level, and that's what your job is. You don't have to go and dig into that. This is operational thing. That's if you're exchange engineer watching this video again, then you have to do and put some more effort. And here it talks about defend against malicious OAuth auditing. So there's a Microsoft Graph connector. You have to enable it. You go in there. For example, let me just pull it up because I don't have enabled. I don't use multiple applications in my environment, but I can show you on the tenant right here. So this is what it is, Microsoft Graph Connect application. So if you come to org settings, you go to security and privacy, and you go to Microsoft Graph Connect application. If it's not enabled, do enable it. And again, you may require change management request for that. Audit identities, that whole application impersonation. As I said, there are application impersonation when you apply third-party application or other application to do the consent, and then application is registered to environment. So app registration is one of those scenario. Here's the whole article that talks about it. How does it work? This is very, very common when you bring third-party application to get access, and so many data analytics related products has that. So again, this is important. So it has all details. And this is, again, I'm telling you again and again, make sure do your due diligence and gracefully implement those. Just don't go and implement it. And they have all the details there. Security consideration, only account that have been granted for exchange and all that stuff. Let me show you one more. This is a PowerShell script. Go run it. And also, if you do not have access to one of those, it will pull the information about role impersonation. And did the whole list. Midnight, also known to abuse OAuth application in the past. Again, Microsoft Team, EWS, Access All User, Graph API. So again, this is known. And then you can, there are best practices available. So it's one of those things you have to work on it. It's not a one-stop click. You go and do it. Again, be mindful of applications. And there are some best practices. So let's see how can we find it in our organization, in your tenant. One thing I also put a video. If you're using Microsoft Sentinel, there's a rule built-in template available. Go enable it. It can, that rule template can also find out these legacy authentication attempt in your environment. So let me show you that, what that video is all about in Microsoft Sentinel. And then you go to my playlist, you go to Microsoft Sentinel, you go to videos, and I should be able to. So this is the one in the black, how to detect midnight blizzard. It's more of a tutorial, but in this I have walked you through about the whole process. So let go this ad. So here's a tutorial where I have showed you how to enable this in your Microsoft Sentinel and pull it and be able to run this. If you're ingesting your log for the last 30 days, 90 days, it's a very good way to look at it. And you will also know what application this is being used for. This is very, very important. Another alternative way is about to go into the sign-in logs. As you can see on the screen right now in Microsoft Entra Admin Center, I am in the sign-in logs. What I'm going to do is that I have it for 7 days, 24 hours. I can even go as back as a month Again, there are different ways. And once you do that, right now, I don't see anything, just the log and everything. Office, office, office. How do I know that, right? That's the question. So you have to add a filter because they are not enabled by default. So filter, you have to select client app, apply. And then in the client app, if you see the list, so first you have to do the client app, go back and reread it, client app. And this is the list of all legacy auth supported app in Microsoft 365. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You got to make sure you run against it. And then POP and SMTP and all that, you should be able to disable right away. And in my environment, my tenant is very small. There is nothing, as I said, no sign in, find out because I blocked it long ago. I had so many hacking attempts in my tenant last year or before. So that's how you're going to do it, pretty much. And then, as I said, do it and make sure, follow the process. It's doable, and just don't go and apply it. It's gonna break. So make sure once, if you have sign in found, you'll find all the application, and from there you have to take your approach. If it's a mail related application, it's a SQL, it's a OneDrive, I don't know. Depending what application, it will show you here in the dashboard, and that's how you're gonna start it and get this thing implemented. I hope this will help. Let me know in the comments, what do you think, what do you find in your environment, and happy to help. Thank you and bye.